What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's reaction video is why so many Americans moved to Arizona but not New Mexico. Okay, interesting.
They're close, aren't they?
They're next to each other, aren't they? I guess they've got the same climate, temperature, and it would just, be the reasons why people pick it. Not much to differentiate it from what we would assume, but obviously there is. Smash the like button, guys. Smash the subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it. You guys are smashing it, and we really appreciate it. Just double check you are subscribed, though, because we've been getting unsubscribed from people, haven't we?
We have.
It does happen, so just double check. We'd appreciate that as well, you absolute legends. Big news coming in 2 days. So make sure you put it in your calendar. If you don't have a calendar, put it in your phone. If you don't have a phone, put it in your brain. 24th of March on this Friday at 5 Eastern, we will be live. The video's going to go live at 4 Eastern of big news, but we're going to do a video. We're going to do a live stream, aren't we?
Yes.
So 5 Eastern, be there or be
in trouble.
I was going to say square.
Yeah, I don't like that.
But you can be, yeah, you don't know. That's like 2005 stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not good.
Maybe not that, I was 6, maybe 2010.
Yeah.
Are you ready to get into it?
Yes.
Why so many Americans moved to Arizona but not New Mexico? What we got?
New Mexico is a beautiful state. The land of enchantment, as it turns out, is quite enchanting. But while New Mexico has grown fairly consistently over the last 100 years, its neighboring state, Arizona, has grown multiple times more over the same time period. Here's why so many Americans moved to Arizona and not New Mexico.
My guess is taxes, but I have no clue.
Yeah.
People tend to move for taxes nowadays, don't they?
Hello and welcome to Geography by Jeff. Today we're off to the Great Southwest to look at two states in particular and how they've grown over the last century. New Mexico and Arizona have quite the entangled history, as it turns out. But while Arizona has grown by an incredible amount, New Mexico simply hasn't. Which is crazy, because New Mexico is simply beautiful. And this is to take nothing away from Arizona, but the discrepancy between the two states is actually pretty jarring.
I'm ready to
From the
find
very
out.
beginning, the histories of Arizona and New
It's
Mexico
Grand
have been
Canyon vibes.
intertwined.
But we're
And
just
much like its
green.
name suggests, New Mexico was once part of Mexico proper.
Okay.
In fact, not only was New Mexico part of the current country of Mexico, but so too were the modern-day states of Texas,
Wow.
Arizona, Utah,
Mexico
Nevada,
were big.
California,
Yeah.
much of Colorado, and a sliver of Wyoming. The vast majority of this territory was won by the United States during the Mexican-American War with the signing of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848.
Okay.
The remainder of what would become the contiguous United States was purchased from Mexico in 1854 in order to build a southern transcontinental rail. This entire region in between
I thought that's a bit of like, they've done the rail. They could have just like, they could have just gone round, couldn't they? But like,
yeah.
nah, we want to get some more land, so we say we have to go here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
1954 in order to build a southern transcontinental rail. This entire region in between the newly minted states of California and Texas would become the New Mexico Territory.
Okay.
Now, as with many states and territories during this period of time, the New Mexico Territory would get wrapped up in the US Civil War, where it was constantly debated on whether it would be entered into the Union as a slave state or as a free state. In fact, both the Union and Confederates claimed the territory under their respective banners. The Union would eventually win the territory, but the Confederates, based in Texas, would continue to claim the southern part of the territory and march under a different flag and name entirely,
Okay.
Arizona. And despite the current incarnation of the two states, the Confederates actually cut the territory into a northern half and a southern half,
That's different
of
now,
which
isn't
they
it?
Yeah.
claimed the southern half for which they believed would become the Confederate state of Arizona. Of course, Arizona and New Mexico don't look like this today. Shortly after the war ended in 1865, the reunited US government would sort out the territory into the New Mexico Territory in the east and the Arizona Territory in the west. The northwest portion of the New Mexico Territory would also be given to Nevada, which was admitted into the Union in 1864.
Okay.
And Colorado would take the northeast portion. It would be another 47 years before New Mexico or Arizona would be admitted into the Union as a full state. But the original
Another
intent was
47
that New
years.
Mexico
That's a long
would be
time.
entered into the full state much sooner than in 1912. In 1888, President Grover Cleveland proposed admitting the territory into the country along with Washington, Montana, and Dakota,
Soon.
but would lose that battle due to shifting political winds. But even in 1888, New Mexico wasn't a place to be considered for statehood for many years prior. Nevada, for example, was entered into the Union with less than 10,000 people living in it. At that time, New Mexico had
10,000?
nearly
That's not many
100,000 people.
If you think
But
about
mo-
how many people are in, do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? That is extremely low. But I suppose back then it's not. Do you know what I
No.
mean? They had 100,000 people
Yeah.
there. 10,000 is not that much lower,
No,
but it's a lot lower than 100,000.
it is.
Most of those people were former Mexican citizens, and
Okay.
U.S. politicians had no intention of regarding them on an equal level as American settlers to
Oh,
Nevada.
wow.
Arizona, it should be pointed out, would be excluded from statehood for similar reasons.
That's
New
harsh.
Mexico would
is
ultimately be
harsh.
admitted to the state on January 6, 1912, and Arizona would be admitted shortly after on February 14th, 1912.
Okay.
And during this time of admittance, New Mexico would have nearly 330,000 people living in it, while Arizona would have just over 200,000 people.
So New
This is a
Mexico
far cry from where the two states are today.
started ahead and had more people.
Yeah.
And now it's completely different. Interesting. Interesting.
New Mexico and Arizona share a unified history. Even after they were split up as separate territories, they remained linked for a long time. But beginning in the mid-1900s, something started happening. Arizona began pulling away from New Mexico. And there's a reason for that. But before we get into why so many Americans moved to Arizona and not New Mexico,
Same here. Would
if you're
appreciate
enjoying
it.
this video, now would be a great time to subscribe. More fun geography videos are just a single click away.
Water rules everything. Okay, that's
As already
true.
mentioned, New
You need it to live, don't you?
You do.
It's very important.
Mexico would start
Get
out
your
its
water
life as
down
a
here.
state with far more people than Arizona. But it wouldn't take too long before this starts to change. By 1950, Arizona begins to outpace New Mexico handily with over 750,000 people to New Mexico's
Oh, we've
680,000.
already overtaken.
And from there, the gap just gets wider. And this is interesting because, from the outside, the two states look pretty similar. Mostly because both are predominantly dry, arid deserts aside from specific areas.
Okay.
And this leads us to our
Arizona's hot
likely
in the
number
bottom
one
left.
reason for the two's
California,
relative
Mexico
growth.
side. Mexico.
Water.
Mexico
It
side.
might seem odd that
It's what?
Mexico.
Mexico side.
It's
There you go.
California and Mexico.
And this is why I watch our reactions, because we are so insightful. High five. You can't understand me, and then Millie butchers a word.
two mostly desert states would have a huge difference in the amount of water available, but that is actually the case here.
New Mexico's got a lot more
You see,
water.
Arizona is fed by multiple different water
Arizona's quite red,
sources,
isn't it?
but a large part of its water comes from the Colorado River,
Okay.
a river that also feeds the states of Colorado, Nevada, Wyoming, California, and New
Well, I'm
Mexico.
glad Colorado River
But just a
feeds
smidge.
Colorado, that'd be
And
good.
in this equation, Arizona gets a sizable portion of the Colorado River, delivered by an extensive aqueduct.
Okay.
Meanwhile, New Mexico's largest river that goes through it is the Rio Grande. But the Rio Grande is much smaller than the Colorado River, and New Mexico doesn't get it all. In fact, New Mexico and Texas had been locked in a legal battle over who has access to the majority of the river's water until very recently.
Oh, wow.
But also, these two rivers are not equal. The Colorado River has an average discharge of about 22,500 cubic feet of water per second. And the Rio Grande has an average discharge of about
Oh, that's a big
2,400
difference.
cubic feet per second.
a lot less.
Which means that there is flatly less water for New Mexico to use for things like agriculture.
Okay.
And especially in the early part of the 20th century, agriculture was a huge economic generator. If your state wasn't able to grow as much, fewer people would move there overall.
Makes sense.
This,
But
of
money
course,
was
is
in
no
it as
longer
well.
the case
Yeah.
today, but it had knock-on effects. As Arizona was able to grow its agricultural industry, it attracted additional people to support the increase in population. This would directly lead to the city of Phoenix outpacing New Mexico's largest city, Albuquerque, in almost every industry.
Albuquerque.
But there's also another
That's
thing
what
at
I
play
suppose
here.
it's that.
I knew you were going to say that. It's the only reason I know that, because every time someone says Albuquerque, you're like, yep, High School Musical, yep, I knew that. And then you had an argument on stream once about it, I remember that. Not an argument, a debate. Do you remember?
Yes, but I was right because I seen a TikTok from one of the people that did Ice Musical at that place in Albuquerque.
Because you should always trust
TikTok.
things online.
Always trust TikTok.
Don't always just TikTok.
As we've already mentioned, Arizona and New Mexico share a mostly dry, arid climate throughout the state. But despite this similarity, the two states' weather systems are actually quite different.
How many hot air
You see,
balloons?
New Mexico exists at an average elevation of around 5,000 feet above sea level, and its largest city, Albuquerque, is at 5,300 feet above sea level.
What's that?
If we contrast this to
Albuquerque.
Arizona, the differences start to emerge. While Arizona's average elevation is still a relatively high 4,000 feet above the sea level, Phoenix has managed to grow in a valley that's much lower.
Okay.
Phoenix, home to millions of Arizonans, is just over 1,200 feet of elevation, and this has had a huge impact on the relative comfort for people living there. What this basically boils down to is that while both Phoenix and Albuquerque get quite hot in the summer, in the winter, Albuquerque gets much colder.
But
The
makes sense,
average
I guess.
low during the
It
fall
makes
and
sense.
winter months can range anywhere between the low 40s all the way down to the low teens.
Wow.
Phoenix, meanwhile, stays at a
Contrasting.
relatively comfortable
Yeah.
temperature throughout winter. And this means that people who are fleeing from the colder northern cities, also called snowbirds, have inevitably chosen Phoenix and Arizona as their destination rather than Albuquerque or New Mexico at large.
Okay. That makes sense, to be fair, but I would have never ever assumed New Mexico gets like quite cold.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'd always be like, nah, that's just hot all year round.
Yeah.
Would have been my guess.
Today, New Mexico has a population just over 2.1 million people, making it the 36th largest state overall.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Arizona has over 7.3 million people,
Ooh,
making
that's
it the
a big
14th
gap.
largest state.
That's crazy.
That's
I was
nearly
thinking
three and
maybe
a half
1
times
mil.
the size of New Mexico. And this has trickled down throughout both states. Phoenix has nearly 5 million people in its metro area
Wow.
and has attracted an industry and economy to match, as well as major league sports teams in 4 of the 5 major leagues in the US.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Albuquerque has a relatively small 900,000 people in its metro region,
That's not
a
lot.
smaller
Big
economy,
difference.
and
Say
no
9
major
times
league
Jersey
sports
people.
teams.
That's only 9 times Jersey people. Jersey's tiny. But like I say, I expected that gap. I honestly had no clue. But I guess it to be 1 million or something.
Yeah.
But instead, it's 5.2. That's quite mad, isn't it?
Crazy.
And this isn't to say that New Mexico and Albuquerque aren't growing. They definitely are.
Just Phoenix
Between
just growing
1970
more.
and 2010, New Mexico grew by double digits every single decade.
Wow.
That's pretty phenomenal growth that many states would envy. But compared to its neighbor Arizona, it's peanuts. New Mexico is a phenomenal state that has a lot going for it today. But it's had a unique set of challenges that's led to some rather anemic growth over the 20th century. Challenges its neighbor Arizona didn't have quite as much of. And because of those challenges, so many more people continue to move to Arizona over New Mexico today. I hope you enjoyed learning about why so
there
many
you go.
Americans...
Another geography with Jeff
Yeah.
video. You guys enjoying them? We're enjoying them as well. Smash the like button if you are enjoying it, to let us know you are, because you have done it previously. We'd really appreciate that. Don't forget our big news.
Yes, 2 days.
There you go. Big gap. Obviously, Arizona is superior for the reasons said. But I think in looks, probably how the state actually is, it probably is it's very similar, isn't
Yeah.
it? I think it's just a few key details which makes potentially comfort of living,
Yeah.
and that just that life experience a little bit better to live in, but it doesn't mean it's a better state. You know what I mean?
Nope.
Let us know in the comments what you guys think, and what should I do?
Have a fantastic day.
And we will see you, legends, in the next one. Peace.